alternative. Okay, round 2. And mulligan this hand. And I guess keep this hand, but not having blue mana available. The stays is perfect for the hand. Not having blue mana available is pretty awkward. So this is like a glass cannon draw. Though I do have technically blue mana available, because I can Metamorphose into double blue. But it's not a very sustainable source of blue. Secluded Step probably means Boros, most likely. I think in that matchup I'm willing to just run out my Fiend. I wouldn't have been willing to do this without a Mutagenic Growth, but now that I have Mutagenic Growth, which is now grayed out for some reason, I have an answer to Galvanic Blast early on, because my opponent won't have Metacraft yet and Lightning Bolt. So Journey to Nowhere is like the only thing that gets me here. Nope. And then I have quite a bit of damage potential here. And in some very extreme cases I even come up with a kill. But most likely I'm just hitting my opponent for 10 here. Yeah, I think I will just double blue. Like I could theoretically have like, damn it. Could theoretically have like a Texane Probe on top of my deck and then draw into Temur Better Rage to kill them here. But that seemed a lot less likely than just chaining cantrips and getting my opponent low. Second, Mutagenic Growth, definitely what I want. Island also what I want, so. This adds 5 damage, so I can put my opponent to 2. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be casting it proactively, just put them to 7 and keep this around for more protection. Makes it very difficult for my opponent to tap out for anything, because I just threaten to kill them from there. And this looks like a shuffle. There it is. A little bit late to the party. But attacking for 13 is still pretty reasonable. Unban Deathright Shaman in Modern. That is also not going to happen. They do have a Journey. So either they top decked it or they were greedy on turn 2. But still only one artifact land in play, so it's difficult for them to Galvanic Blast this down. They basically need 2 burn spells to get it off of the board through my Mutagenic Growth. Though Prismatic Strands is starting to become an issue here. Okay, that gives them a turn. Unless they go like Artifact Land Galvanic Blast here, then that just wrecks me. Yeah, this as a 3 mana fog is not that big of a problem. Okay, there we go. There's fireworks going on in the background. Is the microphone picking that up or not? I'm not certain. Let me know if it's annoying, then I can mute myself. But I think it's not that loud. At least for me it's not. Okay, so now I have two creatures threatening to be lethal. And they're even different colors, so Prismatic Strands is a little bit nerfed by that fact. Because my opponent can't just prevent all damage from a single color and then deny my whole turn. Though, if I have to commit to Temur Better Rage, they can still choose the color that I'm targeting. Okay, so this deals still 2 damage. Interesting. So then it still doesn't really do anything against the mutagenic growth. Though I can let this resolve and just try and protect my Kiln Fiend, because it's the more threatening creature. Yeah, I think that's alright. If they have multiple burn spells, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah, this one I'm trying to save. If they have another, then I'm super screwed. Vapor Snack was a reason to run out my Spellweaver Eternal before my Kiln Fiend, because then the second creature that I play, the Kiln Fiend, could have been played with blue mana open, and then I could have Vapor Snacked my own creature to have an extra threat in response to a removal spell. Here I just end up killing my opponent. That is very fortunate. This matchup is definitely tough. They just have more removal than we have threats, and all the removal is very mana efficient, so it's difficult for us to keep any combo piece on the board. But yeah, winning game 1 is incredibly important. Now my chances of being able to keep my creatures alive with all this counter magic improve greatly. Dazes don't seem that great. Even Vapor Snacks don't seem that great, though I guess I probably need some number of Vapor Snacks and or Electricries to be able to deal with Standard Bearer from my opponent. Otherwise I can like never go for Timur Betteridge combo if I don't have answers to the Standard Bearer. And Spellweaver Eternal doesn't seem that great, though my alternative of a Drazi Sky Spawner also doesn't seem that great here, because it just runs into core Sky Filters pretty easily. So it's difficult to make additional cuts from my deck here and figure out what I want. Probably throw out at least one Vapor Snack, maybe even two, and just have the Electricity for Standard Bearer. But then I'm pretty vulnerable to that. Maybe just some number of Metamorphos, just to increase the consistency and reliability of my deck, so that I know what I'm working with instead of having to cycle through it. I'm not sure if I like what number of Battle Rage I want, because I kind of want to slowly beat my opponent down and keep threatening them while keeping protection open and not necessarily commit all my resources to a single combo turn. But I do need to have some closing power, otherwise I'm giving my opponent too much time. I think I'll try just 2 when I'm on the draw, but I could see more and just YOLOing it and hoping my opponent doesn't have their answers on time to also be correct. Okay, this looks like a pretty reasonable setup. A little bit slow, because I kind of need to get to 4 mana to be able to protect my Nivik Cyclops with a dive down. Ben Fetchland has been suggested before. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think the mana bases would just, first of all, get worse, but also just get a lot more expensive. I think it's a problem from the budget perspective. If you force people to play 4 Underground Sea, 4 Volcanic Island or something, that's just not sustainable, because you basically double the demand for dual lands without increasing the supply. I think that's economically pretty horrible to ban fetch lands, though it would solve many of the problems and many of the overpowered cards. So from that perspective, I don't disagree. Okay, I think just blue-red and hope to find a creature, so I put more pressure on my opponent when they opened up on bounce land. Okay, these don't look great. There's my creature a little late, but I can run it out next turn with protection. Do I not like Apostle's Blessing? I don't know. I'm just playing the list that recently won the tournament, and not my own list. I know many of the other stock lists play Apostle's Blessing. My only experience with Apostle's Blessing is in Tireless Tribe, and there it was very underwhelming for me. I never really liked it, though it is relevant in this deck that you can have a protection spell that is castable off of basic mountain, that can occasionally be an advantage. So I don't think Apostle's Blessing is horrible. I'm not certain if it would be better than any of what I'm currently running. It's basically replaced by the Dazes, and so far Daze has been pretty mediocre for me. The Metamorphoses have been doing a good job though. I've been positively surprised by those, which is the other change in the deck list. Journey to Nowhere would actually be sweet for me here, because I can dive down in response and they have to journey their Thorium Inspector. Though they can still pick their journey back up with their Core Sky, for sure, then they get the Thorium Inspector trigger back. This is kind of interesting, because I could let this resolve and just have multiple protection spells for my Cyclops at some point. But it's probably just better to start getting resources out of my hand, and I can't really afford to have multiple protection spells open for the time being, at least not if I want to run out Cyclops next turn. Not certain on that. Damn. More land's not good for me, especially because this version doesn't run any Brainstorms. Let's see if they sacrifice this. I assume they don't. Would be very happy if they do. Yes, because I didn't really have a profitable tech here anyways. Likely would have even kept it back if they hadn't activated, so now I get to deny them an artifact from Metacraft and deny them the ability to Alchemist Valmy later on. Dive Down does a good job against Alchemist Vile as well, though if my opponent relies on that being their only protection for a turn, then I can give Hexproof in response to the ability and then still attack them. These types of spots are awkward though, because I kinda need a Battle Rage for my hand to do anything, and I boarded some out, though chaining cantrips into each other is still good as well. Gush would be amazing. I don't even want to crack this Evolving Vase, because I currently have 2 lands on the bottom of my library from the Preordain. So even though this looks like thinning out my deck, it actually increases the amount of lands in my deck by 1 to use it. Okay, not having a cantrip here is pretty bad though, because then I'm not threatening any attacks from this. I would have to expend resources on making it able to attack. I don't think I want to do that. Just run out Kiln Fiend and then have a big board where, well, maybe I do still have to crack this. I only shuffle 1 land back into my deck, but I have a lot more mana available on the next turn so that I can chain cantrips into each other, and that's going to be my goal regardless. Yeah, maybe I do just need the 4th blue source, even though it's not useful in the deck thinning aspect of it. But being able to like preordain into Ponder into like more cantrips is pretty good, while keeping open Dive Down or that is very taxing on the amount of blue mana that I have available. Okay, going to 21 is actually not that bad for my opponent either, because then I can't make a 10 power double striker and kill them with it. I need a little bit more power. Okay, that was one of my best cards though. One of the last pieces of card advantage I have left in my deck with no augurs to work with. You kind of just have to make everything work off of the card that you're given, or the card count that you're given at least. You can select the right cards with all the cantrips, but the raw amount of cards that are available are pretty limited. They're letting me attack. This is very suspicious. Looks a lot like prismatic strands. Considering I don't currently have a way of countering the prismatic strands or a way to give double strike, I think I'll just send the Nivik Cyclops so that I don't have to cast any of my mutagenic growths to make this combat favorable to me. Yeah, okay. Well, I only got the Thread Inspector off of the board, but it also cost me no cards to do that. And we can at a later point find a Daze or a Dispel or something to deal with the... That seems strange that my opponent would try to fight over Killing Fiend instead of fighting over the Nivik Cyclops. Still think I want to save it just to have more threats on the board. I mean, a high number of threats with no spells in hand is not particularly useful, but it's much easier for my deck to give me extra spells than it is to find more threats, because the number of cantrips is just higher. Seems interesting that I didn't try to shoot down the Nivik Cyclops, because it was already damaged by Thread Inspector and would have also died to a lightning bolt. It's possible they wanted to do that because they have Pyroblast in hand, then the Nivik Cyclops is a little easier to kill, despite having more toughness. So I think I have to come up with a kill in the next 1 or 2 turns, otherwise the window for success just closes. Wow, that's awful. Yeah, I think I'm just dead. Can fetch with this and then still hope that I come up with like Preordain into Teemo Battle Rage or something similar. But yeah, I think my opponent's prismatic strands that I'm suspecting they have is just going to be backbreaking. And my hand currently doesn't do a lot. Yeah, so far the Spellweaver Elementals seem to have been a lot worse than Augur of Bolas would have been. And I'm also a fan of... Yeah, I'll probably have to give up on protecting now, because I do need some amount of spells in my hand to make a combo turn happen. I'm a fan of Jeskai Sage, and that's basically a similar effect, a little bit worse, but it offers you a card draw when it gets killed. So it's the perfect thing to soak a Edict up with. Not certain in which matchups these Spellweaver Eternals are really supposed to shine. I guess when your opponent's trying to block them with like 1 power creatures and you can ponder a Preordain before and then get a bunch of damage in still. Yeah, I'm so incredibly dead. It's pretty unfortunate. Having 8 lands when your deck is like 17 or something. What is it? 19 maybe? But yeah, I just had to make something happen a lot earlier. Now I'm just sitting here waiting for my opponent to close out the game. Because now I think the only card in my deck that still does anything is the second Gush. And even that might run into Pyroblast. And I would have to have like the perfect Gush also, where I have some cantrips in the middle and then come up with Teemo Battle Rage and a Dispel for the Prismatic Strands both in the same turn. No, even dispelling the Prismatic Strands doesn't really help, because my opponent can just flash it back. Kiln Fiend might actually be my worst draw, because if I had drawn a land I could have just conceded. And because I drew Kiln Fiend I have to keep playing on. Yeah, you got me. Showing them dive down is actually a downside as well. Yeah, okay. It's possible that I should just concede before my opponent gets to see dive down, so they might not play around it in the next game, especially with Alchemist Well. That's of huge importance. That they don't know that I can give hexproof. Yeah. Okay, that's the problem. There was like no chance of that working, but I showed my opponent an extra card. Okay, I'll try for better rage. Most likely I'll just go for some better rage kill and then my opponent blasts my creature in response and I die. But I think I just want to like once again focus on my combo, have no backup plan, just be like a glass cannon deck where I hope my dispels and dive downs get me there. Wait, not Aura Flux, I wanted the second days in my deck. So that I can go for aggressively setting up turn 3 Cyclops, turn 4 combo kill with days for my opponents, like Prismatic Strands or Journey to Nowhere, or some kind of more expensive interaction, making it awkward on their mana, especially if they have some tapped lands to work with, which is frequently the case with Monarch. They do run a little bit more tapped lands than they're really comfortable with against matchups where they have to interact early on and often as well. Okay, I don't know. Without a red source, this is so sketchy because I need to find red source and creature and better rage. But I do have a ton of protection for the first creature that I find. And Gush is amazing in the matchup. Yeah, I think I'll try it, but it's like right on the edge between mulligan and keep, I think. Could even see it being like a clear mulligan. Okay, these were the two cards I was looking for though. So, once again, at least my cantrips are providing me exactly with what I want. It's not certain that's going to be enough, because the matchup is still rough and my opponent can very easily overload the amount of protection I have open here. And they're at 23 as well. But yeah, I'll run out Kiln Fiend with one protection spell open and then try to kill my opponent on turn 4. If my Gush and Manamorphose can manage to provide me with a better rage. This spell's just way better because Dive Down still protects me from Journey to Nowhere and also gives me protection from Alchemist Well. So if my opponent has like a tapped land here, they have to likely stop my attack with Vial and then I can dive down in response. Probably want blue and red so that I can cast another cantrip. Yeah, I think I guess I can float and see what the Gush gets me. But I think I'm most likely just going for it. Come on, Better Rage. Okay, so I have a land drop still, don't I? Yeah, I do. So I have 4 more mana to work with. So that allows me to ponder and have 4 more looks off of ponder for better rage. So I'm definitely just dive downing here, going all in. No Alchemist Valve for you. Red, blue. Oh, come on. Yeah, I guess I'll shuffle. Oh, come on. At least give me a bunch of Gitaxian probes. Oh, damn it, Battle Rage, why? Why are you there, but too late? And now it's super awkward to keep these, because my opponent can just answer the creature while I'm tapped out. Man, that's so painful. Yeah, I guess I'll shuffle this as well. The Gitaxian probe gets them to 4, but that doesn't really change anything. I want a backup creature now that I failed to find a kill. This deals 5 damage to them, so I put them to 2. Or I keep it in hand and let them stay at 7. Putting them to 2. No, I think keeping it in hand is slightly better. Man, that's an unfortunate fizzle. Because I had 5 looks at the Temur Battle Rages and some combinations of Mutagenic Growth and Gitaxian Probe that would have gotten there. And then the second ponder offered me up the Temur Battle Rage right after I no longer had mana for it, and offered me up the Gitaxian Probe, but combined with a combination of spells that don't allow me to kill my opponent either. And I had to float the red mana off of Manamorphose to be able to find Battle Rage, but then now I was unable to keep this spell open during my opponent's turn as well, which would have also been part of the second ponder. So even a blocker is already great for my opponent, because then I need to find a second Temur Battle Rage to get anything going. Like, they could just freely gem Palace Sentinels here or something. Yeah, that's pretty much the best case for me. They spend their mana on cantrip artifacts and don't develop a ward, both of blockers and casting removal. Is that good? I get this to 8. Well, that's barely not good enough. If they block, I only put them to 1 that way. So I would have to commit to Mutagenic Growth, and Mutagenic Growth opens me up to another burn spell. Though I guess my opponent would have cast another burn spell if they had 1, right? Most likely, so I think this is only representing Pyroblast, and all of my spells dodge Pyroblast. Yeah, I think it's risk it for the biscuit time, because my opponent could have easily bolted my Killing Fiend while I was tapped out. So I don't think they have a damage-based removal spell. If they do, then good for them. I think I have to risk this and hope their card in hand is just Pyroblast. Nice. That was pretty scary. Fizzling there. The worst part was that I gushed, so that after fizzling I have very little mana to work with. But pretty much the perfect top deck to bail me out in the situation, and my opponent managed to only have 1 removal spell in the top 15 cards of the deck, which is also pretty unusual, because they have 10 spot removal spells for a Killing Fiend to work with. Definitely got away pretty lucky there.